Hey, guys and girls, it is episode 37 of Black Tomatoes, and the Grinch is back, and so is Trevell Anderson. Stay tuned.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Yes, honey. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. He is back and he is in full effect in theaters right now. And I am Carla Renata, your host for Black Tomatoes. This is episode 37. At Black Tomatoes, we talk about the latest and greatest film releases, film festivals, and we'll also do a movie-versary and a streaming peak of the week. Streaming pick of the week. But until then, let me introduce you to my co-host, who is...
Hello, Trevell Anderson is here, back again.
Trevell Anderson is back. Scott Menzel is not here. He's off doing some things, but he'll be back soon enough. Y'all.
He's never here when I come.
I know. He says that too. So I got to work that out so that y'all are here together.
Okay. Okay. Trying to tell me something.
Oh, no, I'm not trying to do that. Okay. So tell me what you've been up to, Tre'Vell, before we get into these movies.
You know, I've got a new job. Last time I was here, I was at the LA Times.
So somebody, I was about to say, for people that had just tuned in today.
Last time I was here, I was a film reporter at the Los Angeles Times covering diversity in Hollywood with a focus on Black and queer film. Starting tomorrow will be my first day at Out Magazine. Yay. I'll be the director of culture and entertainment there, handling things in a little manager role.
Look
so,
at
a little glow up,
That's fantabulous. I'm so excited for you. You know I'm your biggest fan.
Thank you.
You know that.
It's going to be great.
Of course it is, because you're doing it.
Yeah.
You did not give me, I don't even know what kind of kitty cat that was.
Listen.
You're giving us kitty cat. Kind of kitty cat leopard.
Little leopard.
You're giving us a little leopard action and kitty cat sound. I cannot with you. You make me laugh. My face hurts laughing at you. You're so silly.
I love it.
So we have a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about the AFI Film Festival, which is playing in Los Angeles right now, over in Hollywood. We're going to talk a little bit about The Front Runner. We're going to do your streaming pick of the week from Netflix, Been So Long. And we're going to talk a little bit about Slumdog Millionaire, which is celebrating a special anniversary, a movie-versary this week. But let's go right into The Grinch.
The Grinch.
So The Grinch is one of my favorite Christmas classics, just because it has that ideology of you can take somebody, kind of like that Charles Dickens classic, Christmas Carol, where you can take somebody who has the hardest of hearts and who is just not Christmassy or not, holiday-esque at all,
right,
and turn them around into being a believer. And I love that it's the Grinch. He's green. He's just nasty. He's mean. He just got drama. But we're going to play a little bit of this clip real fast. So for those watching on YouTube, you can see it. And those listening, you can just hear some music.
Mr. Grinch.
I love that he's getting a latte. That makes me laugh. See, that's what I'm talking about. And then he has his little clothes that he puts on and everything. It's just hilarious. So when I saw this, I was a little nervous. It's being produced by Illumination Pictures. I was a little nervous because sometimes when people do remakes of classics,
right,
they can kind of be all over the place.
Right.
And I was a little nervous. And I was sitting next to this little boy and his mom. And I have to say, what I loved about this version of The Grinch is that they updated it for this generation of children. They updated it with the music. Even the Grinch song has a different spin on it. It's got some rap going on. It's got some rhymes happening. All of the music infused within the film are very current and up-to-date artists. They even have the Grinch at some point working out. In the morning when he gets up, he's working out in his little workout clothes. I'm like, oh no.
Oh, they done really updated. See, I was nervous because I'm tired of the reboots, the remakes, and I'm like, another Grinch. I feel like we get a Grinch movie every single year.
And I didn't like that live animation one.
Exactly.
The one with Jim Carrey.
Yes.
And I think it was directed by Ron Howard. I don't know why that didn't resonate with me, but this one did.
It
and
did?
I think because it went old school and it it re-invoked what the original premise
Mm-hmm.
of Dr. Seuss's book The Grinch is.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't try to do too much with it. It didn't try to make him, something other than what he was. And then it put a different spin on it in the respect that it gave us a insight into why the Grinch is the way he is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now we know that he's salty because of some. I now want to ruin it for anybody because of something that happened in his
Right.
childhood. So that made it entertaining for me, and there was a few sections that looked a little violent to me,
Mm.
and I was feeling a little concerned, but the little boy next to me didn't seem to have a problem with it, and he
Listen,
was 4.
these little kids are grown these days. They done seen a lot.
Look, he was 4. He didn't seem to have an issue. So I'm like, why do I have an issue? If the 4-year-old didn't have an issue, why am I sitting over here going,
Right.
oh my goodness. But I love this.
I do love that they are taking some of these classic stories and kind of revamping them for the younger current generation. I think Pharrell is the
Yes.
narrator this go around.
Mhm.
I would imagine he also had
He has a lot
hands
of
in
the
the music.
music. Mhm.
And he's great and amazing, and so that probably helped with it.
Mhm.
And so as long as the kids love it, I guess that's all that really matters. That's why they keep remaking them, because the kids love it.
Yeah, and it did fantabulous at the box office this week.
did.
So apparently, the other moms out there and the kiddies agreed with me that
Right.
they love the Grinch. So that is it. So you can catch the Grinch. I believe he's in theaters December 9th, which already passed. So December 9th, the Grinch opened. Is produced
November 9th.
Why did I say December 9th?
Because you ready to go.
Because I'm ready to get to Christmas. I'm talking about Christmas. That's why. November 9th, it opened in theaters.
Mhm.
It's open nationwide. And it is produced by Illumination Pictures. Cool. Next up on the schedule is The Front Runner. Now, The Front Runner. Now, this film is really interesting. It was released in theaters on election day, this past election day.
Right.
That was a whole nother conundrum. I won't even get into that. But this film is interesting because it does deal with a presidential election, and it does deal with the real life election race of Gary Hart,
Mm-hmm.
who was the front runner, quote unquote, at that time for president over Walter Mondale. And because of some scandals that surrounded Gary Hart at the time, he ended up getting bumped from that position, and Walter Mondale ultimately became the Democratic nominee for president. And his vice president pick was Geraldine Ferraro.
Mm-hmm.
They did not win, of course. Hold on, I had to sneeze.
Get it? Bam.
Excuse me. But the thing that was really fascinating to me about this movie is that Gary Hart was probably the first tabloid political front runner running for president. He was the first one to deal with the media in that tabloidish type of sense, because scandals and stuff have been happening in politics as long as there's been a Washington, D.C., and as long as there's been a president. There's always been a scandal going all the way back to Abraham Lincoln. I mean, let's be real. But because of the way technology has advanced with cell phones and with internet and with, all kinds of different things that have come over the decades, it has made anyone that is in the public eye in any capacity under scrutiny in a way that they never could have even imagined in their lifetime. So what happens with Gary Hart, but the funny part about Gary Hart is if you gonna fool around on your wife,
Listen.
why are you gonna do it on a ship a yacht called Monkey Business?
Because irony, girl.
Monkey Business. It was so bad that Johnny Carson was on the air at the time, and Johnny Carson was the second host of The Tonight Show after Jack Parr. It was so bad that Johnny Carson, in his monologue, said exactly what I just said. Like, if you're gonna do that, really, you gonna do it on a yacht called Monkey Business? Like, you couldn't do it on on something that didn't have a name, just had white across the side. Like, why you got to be on something called Monkey Business? And the other thing that it brings to light is Monica Lewinsky has been back in the limelight recently.
Yeah.
Not for her indiscretions, but for books and her speaking engagements and whatnot. She actually walked off of an interview not too long ago because somebody went to ask her a question about what happened with Bill Clinton. She's like, I am not here to discuss
I know
that.
that's right.
And she got up and she left. But before Monica Lewinsky, there was Donna Rice. And Donna Rice was the chick that Gary Hart had his indiscretions with. and the film makes you feel really bad for her because you know she doesn't see this media circus coming, and you know she doesn't see that it's coming for her to deflect the attention off
From
of
him.
him.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel some kind of way. I read some articles about her recently because now she's married, she has a husband, she has children, her life is completely different. And she said it had her husband not been there holding her hand watching that movie, it would have been really hard for her to watch that because that was a jacked up chapter of her life to revisit, you know.
I'm interested in like I want to start seeing the front runner was cute, whatever. But I'm interested in the stories of of these women, like the other side of this, right? We put so much attention on the men, on the presidents, and the candidates in this case of this film. But I'm interested in the perspective from the other side.
Yeah.
And like it's great to know that like she's married, she's got her own family, and like she's just very much removed from all of this. But like I want to see that on film because I think for me that's a little bit more interesting than this male side, which like we've seen all the time.
Well, you know
right?
why that is because there's this ideology in America that when a man has an affair, the woman is always scorned on the other side of
Right.
that. It's always she's a tramp, she's a hoe, she's this, she's that. And people seem to forget. I don't know. Well, let me just say, I'm not sure if they forget or if they just don't want to adhere and recognize that it takes two to tango.
It do take two to
The
tango.
women are not having these affairs by themselves. The men had to do something. Now, mind you, it may not have been their greatest moment in life. They might not have been the best decision that they ever made in
Right.
life. You know, it was definitely a lapse in judgment in that respect. But having said that, that doesn't make them a monster. You know, and I agree with you. Let's see what they have to say about it. You know, how did these men come into their realm in the first place?
Right. Because that's something that we never really get to see, right? We never really get to see the actual power dynamics in a lot of these situations, right? And we just see it as a woman who's, trying to get a higher position or get some access. So she gonna do a little flirtatious situation to kind of try to get in. And we just ignore kind of that power differential between somebody who's running for president and, somebody who's not running for president, right?
Right. And I'm sure for some of these women, especially like in Lewinsky's case, she was a White House intern.
Right.
I'm sure for a split second, her ego said, oh my God, the president of the United States thinks I'm sexy.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, what am I going to do with that?
Exactly. And what does that do to your brain?
Psyche.
Yes.
Right. And in Donna Rice's case, Gary Hart wasn't president, but people were pretty sure he was not only going to clinch the nomination, but that he was going to be the next president of the
runner.
Yeah, they
Yes.
thought he was going to be the next president of the United States. He had everything going for him except for one thing. He and his wife did not live together when he was running for president. So if they hadn't globbed onto his affair with Donna Rice, they would have globbed onto the
Right.
fact that him and his wife were no longer together. But his wife, wherever he was, she showed up in public and she supported him. It's not like they were separated and you never saw her face.
Right.
Like the current administration.
Well,
I'm just saying. But she constantly showed her face, and it was just I felt bad for his family. I felt bad for I felt bad for Donna Rice. I felt bad for his wife because apparently that wasn't the first time Gary Hart had cheated, but it was the first time he got caught, and he got caught globally.
Listen,
like it was around the
with
world.
all the cameras telling you.
You
okay?
know, just all your cookies out of the cookie jar and on the ground. It was
Which is
horrible.
crazy though, right? Because you would think that knowing you gonna have all of this attention on you, to your point, maybe you wouldn't have did your dirty business on a boat that said monkey business. Maybe you would take, a private hotel room or something, perhaps.
Not
know?
even that. You go someplace that's up in the woods somewhere where people don't know you. You
Right.
don't know them. Like, be smart about
Hello?
it. Go off the PCH in someplace in Malibu.
If
You
you
know
gonna
what I mean?
do it, do it.
If you're going to
you
do
know?
it, go sneak off somewhere. But don't be just like, blam, here I am. Like,
Right.
it was just foul. But I agree with you. I would love to see somebody do a documentary or maybe like a 2-hour special
Right.
just on that, because it really is fascinating to see how these men came into their orbit and what was the single solitary moment where these women thought for a split second that this could happen and that they either were going to get away with it
Right.
or they thought that this person may leave their wife
For them, yeah.
for them. And I can tell you right now, there's not a married man alive that's gonna leave his wife for the mistress. That's just not there. There are very few documented cases in which that happens. I mean, very, 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 very few. So there's that. But so Michael B, what's up, Michael B? You know, I always
Hey,
give
Michael.
love to my people in the chat room. Michael B is in that chat room, and he is like he said, "You dames are into the power and money." Case in point, Lil Wayne. Well,
Listen, I'm gonna take a sip on that.
and Michael B says, "Congrats, Tre'Vell."
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much.
So there's that. So we will leave that alone. But I enjoyed this movie. I thought that Hugh Jackman. This is a film in which you see Hugh Jackman play a role we've never seen him in before. We usually see him as the entertainer,
Right.
you know, doing Broadway, singing, dancing, being
His
that.
last film was Greatest Showman,
Right.
right?
We usually see him doing that kind of role or something comedic. We never see him playing someone that is dark and flawed and real like this, like a politician. And he's doing a really good job. I really hope that the media gives him some love for this because I think he's doing a really good job, but I doubt that they will.
You know, we're a little tired of just political stories altogether. So, like, I think, like, even this film, I feel like we haven't really heard too much
We
about
haven't,
it.
because I think they thought that releasing it on election day was going to make it like this big thing.
Yeah.
But they underestimated the power of election. There was a time where they could have released this film on election day and it would have made huge numbers.
Very much so,
But
yeah.
now is not that time because people are too invested in what the election results are going to be because of what our current state of affairs are in this country. So they're not going to be so eager to go run out and see a movie on election day. Now, had they released this the weekend after,
Right.
or the weekend before,
right.
it may have done better. But I think because they released it on election day, it was kind of like, wah, wah,
Yeah,
wah.
the
It kinda
thinking
came
wasn't
away.
right on that, but, you know.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So the AFI Film Festival.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite film festivals that
Really?
happen.
Why?
Because it has a mix of everything. They have indies, they have panels, it's the closest thing to being at a Sundance or a Toronto that's in my backyard.
That's real. Very much so.
That's why I like it, because it's the closest thing to that in my backyard, and I really enjoy it. So for those of you that have never been to the AFI Film Festival, watching Black Tomatoes, here's a little sneak peek.
What did you say your name was?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Are you afraid? Because our swords are not just for show.
That's good. It's perfect, Tony.
And that was a perfect little sneak peek
Yes.
of the AFI Film Festival. I've seen a few of the films already. Have you gone down there? yet?
Yes, I've poked around, and
You've
then
poked
some
around.
of their films, right? We saw at Toronto. I've seen it at Sundance earlier this year. They've got a few big kind of premieres though that like everybody's waiting on.
Yes. So the one that is opening this week, actually is opening in theaters, is this film called Jen. Did you happen to see Jen?
I did not see Jen, but I've heard it premiered at South by Southwest. Was it earlier this year or last year?
Last year.
Last year. I've heard really great things about it, but I haven't checked it out yet.
So I get to enlighten you. I'm
Yes,
so excited.
let me know.
So Jen is this film about this young lady named Summer. She's 17 years old, and she's kind of she's very confident, very, sure of herself, just very, that. But her mother is a meteorologist, and her mother decides that she wants to become a member of Islam. And therefore, because Summer's living with her mother, Summer's going to have to be a member of Islam too. And that brings up all kinds of feelings between the mother and daughter, just between their relationship in general, because their relationship was on sketchy at best before
Right.
that. Now that this Islam situation has been introduced into the mix, it makes it a little bit more complicated. The mother and so they're both having kind of an identity crisis with their mother-daughter relationship and with their religion. And then that bleeds over into Summer's sexuality and how that affects her sex life as a young teenager in America, a black young teenager who's Muslim in America,
Right.
and how it affects her friends and how her friends look at her walking around with a jihad on. You know what I mean? It's because whenever we see these films, it's usually from the vantage point and the point of view of somebody that is not a person of color.
Right.
This is the first time I've ever seen a film like this, other than like Malcolm X, where it focused on a person of color, and the people in it are so good.
I've
They're
heard
so
amazing
good.
things, and it's written and directed by
It's
a black
written and
Muslim
directed
woman.
by a black Muslim woman who's here in Los Angeles. She worked with a youth group here, and so she took her experiences working at this youth center here in a performing arts center here in Los Angeles, and turned it into a movie.
I love it. I do need to check it out. I've heard really, really amazing things about it.
It's a wonderful, wonderful film. Two things that I took away from it, other than what I just said. The first thing is we live in a world right now where social media is everything. And I touched on that a little bit earlier in the conversation. Social media is everything. You know, everybody's life looks fantabulous when you look at their Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever pages that they have. People have ways of making stuff look wonderful through filters, through the way they describe the picture, through the way they take the picture, you know, all these things, pictures, pictures, pictures. So this young lady is struggling with this identity, and she thinks the best thing to do is to take a selfie with her jihad on and say something flippant about it. And that's when the movie turns on its head. And it just becomes, so it brings to light the fact that social media is not always fun and games.
Right.
Social media, depending on how you use it, depending on how you post a selfie, what kind of selfie you post, in what context you post it, what time you post it, can either enlighten your timeline,
Right.
or blow it up in a way that you don't see coming.
That's real.
The other thing that was real for me is that her mother, as I mentioned, is a meteorologist, and her mom is having issues because she's a meteorologist. She's a black woman on the air doing the weather. She's got long flowing. She has natural hair. So this was another thing. Her mom has natural hair, as does Summer, but her mom chooses to throw her natural hair underneath a straight permed wig to do her meteorologist reports. So now her mother is faced with an identity crisis of, do I want to keep taking this wig off this wig head, hiding my natural hair under a wig, or do I want to hide my natural hair under a jihad and embrace who I am from a religious standpoint?
Right.
It's all
I'm gonna say it sounds like a lot,
Jen
like
is
in a
giving-
good way.
It's in a great way. Jen is giving you all of that. So I highly, highly recommend it. It opens, is produced by Orion Pictures. It opens on November 16th. It's on video on demand. It's streaming online. So you can find it if you type in Jen, Jinn movie. But it was really, really wonderful. And I highly, highly, highly recommend
I'm gonna
it.
check it out.
Yes. So the opening night gala film of AFI Festival was this film called On the Basis of Sex. And it is a story about this groundbreaking case for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who unfortunately had a little tumble this week. So
She had a tumble, but she's back up, so I hear.
she is hardcore.
Listen,
That doll.
she said, y'all got to do more than a little broken rib to get rid of me.
That doll's like, I'm not going nowhere.
Listen.
I'm so not surprised by that, because the way she is depicted in this movie by Felicity Jones makes her seem like she is the type of woman that she doesn't know what no is. She doesn't know what hard is. She knows, this is what I have to do to get this result, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get that result. So On the Basis of Sex is based on this case. It's a gender-based case in which this man wants to sue the government for refusing to pay him Social Security benefits from his wife, who he's taking care for, based on his gender. Like, they're saying that they can give it to a woman if it was flipped,
Right.
but they'd never had a situation where the benefits would be given to a man. So that happened there. And she fought that case. Her and her husband fought it together, Martin Ginsburg, who was also a lawyer. This is what I liked about the film. I liked the fact that Armie Hammer, for the first time in I don't even know how long, finally has a film that shows all the charm that he exudes as a person, as an actor on screen in all his glory. And he's giving a really strong, grounded, wonderful performance, because he's had a lot more misses
Right.
than he's had hits in feature films, and I think this is a home run for him in that regard.
I agree.
With Felicity Jones, I feel like there's part of me that feels like she may possibly have been miscast to play Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mainly because, not because of her acting ability, because she's a fabulous actress and I'm a big fan of hers, but there was something about her performance that didn't quite resonate for me with her playing Ruth. And the other thing that bothered me a little bit about her is that she flipped in and out of her accent a little bit.
Yeah.
You could hear
You
you
can
could hear
hear
the
it.
British accent. And I was like, oh, I'm like, is Ruth Bader Ginsburg British? I was like, did I just hear that? So that, and I know for a fact that when you have an accent, when you get tired, it's real easy to float back
Very
into that
easy.
accent, and you're not even aware that you're doing it. But that falls on whoever was watching her through the lens, should have brought it to her attention or did another take in
Right.
which there wasn't the accent
And they
happening.
tell her, girl, like, we can hear you.
Right.
Well, I will somewhat one thing about the film. I did enjoy the film. Because I think it is a great narrative companion for the documentary that came out early this year, Notorious RBG.
RBG.
RBG. I'm gonna admit I loved the documentary a lot more than I loved this.
That's what everybody
film.
says. Yeah.
But I think it was great just to kind of have this kind of snapshot of this moment in, Notorious RBG's life, so that we can now, continue to celebrate her for all of her accomplishments and the fact that, like, she's not letting no fall, keep her down.
But this is the other thing that I hated. I hated that, and this is a really good point. So I hated the fact that as far as her personal life was concerned and how her personal life bled into her professional life, it was like I felt like we got the greatest hits of that in this movie.
That's true.
You know what I mean? I felt like it was the greatest hits of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and now we're going to focus the rest of the movie on this case, which is the name of the film. I get that. But it reminded me of when Marshall came out. The title of the film was called Marshall. And people went thinking they were going to see a biopic about Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
And what they saw was a feature film that focused very heavily on one specific groundbreaking case for Thurgood Marshall. And I couldn't help but feel the same way when I was watching this.
You wanted more.
I wanted to see. This is the thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a badass.
Yes.
This is a woman who was married and had children and was going to law school at Harvard and taking her caseload and her husband's caseload at the same time, then had to leave Harvard, transfer to Columbia University. Harvard wouldn't transfer her credit, so then Dollface had to start all over again.
Yes.
And still ended up the first to her class in both places. She was at the top of her class in both places with all of that. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to celebrate that because it deserves to be celebrated. Yes, that case, it was groundbreaking. Yes, it was a big coup for gender bias in America. It was all of that. But I really wanted the film to celebrate her a little more than it did.
It seems to me like some of these semi-biopic type films, like, they never get it quite right. Like, they never focus on the right moments or the right parts of a person's story that really make you go, yes, this was like a good job. You gave me what I needed, but also gave me kind of the core of whatever the case was as well.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't hate the movie.
Right, it's a solid film.
It's a solid film. I like the film. I'm just pointing out the things that I would have liked to have seen different. I also like the fact that Mimi Leader and Amblin produced it and she directed it. I love the fact, this is what I also loved. I love the fact that for once there was a woman directing a story about a woman and not a man directing a story about a woman, because I feel like that trajectory and the way it would have come out would have been very different. No shade, but that's the truth.
Very much so. Very much so.
So that's that. And On the Basis of Sex, I believe, is going to be released on Christmas Day. So you guys might want to check that out. It is produced by Focus Features. Next up on the skid is Green Book.
Green Book.
Now, I have to say, I had never heard of a Green Book. I didn't know what a Green Book was.
Where are you from?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, maybe that's why.
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, but I'd never heard of Green Book. My mother's generation may have known, but I didn't know. But for those listening and watching on YouTube, Green Book is a book that was published during a time in America where Black people were not allowed to travel by themselves. You had to be accompanied by a white person, and you had to be sitting in the front of the car driving and not in the back as a passenger.
Correct.
Having said that. So it was a book that outlined where you could stay as a person of color in terms of hotels, restaurants, and that kind of thing, because there was still that separate thing where it was for colored onlys, for white only happening in America. So that's what the Green Book is. This film focuses on Dr. Don Shirley, who was a concert pianist, and I'd never heard of him before
Me
this
either.
movie,
Me
which
either.
I am just ashamed to
Yeah.
say. But it focuses on Dr. Don Shirley and the fact that he is about to embark on a tour of the South, which he specifically pointed out and wanted to do, but he needs somebody to drive him, and he looks to this Italian dude from the Bronx
Mm-hmm.
to be his driver, who is one of the most racist individuals
Oof.
ever. Racist to the point where when some black people were in his home drinking lemonade, when the black people left, he took the 2 glasses that they drank the lemonade out of and put them in the trash can. I said, wow. But Tony, and I can't even pronounce Tony's last name. I'm not even gonna butcher it.
Right.
But I'm gonna call him Tony V.
Right.
But Tony V is played by Viggo Mortensen, and Dr. Don Shirley is played by Oscar winner Mahershala Ali. And these 2 men are giving very solid performances. This film was fantastic from beginning to end. There's a lot of laughter in a film that is broaching a very serious subject.
Mm-hmm.
I just think entertainment wise and directing wise and the way the story was put together, it was, for me, it was perfect, because there were lots of ways where it could have gone wrong.
It's the feel good movie of the year that a lot of people seem to be surprised that, like, audience, like it won the audience award at Toronto, and so, like, people really love the film. As for me, I enjoyed the film. I did not.
You didn't get all that.
I wasn't as emphatic about it as everybody else has been. And for me, that came in part with Mahershala's character, not his acting, because he's great, he's amazing, he deserves. But the character, just the way he played the character, just was a little interesting to me. Again, I don't know the real guy, the real Don Shirley, so maybe it's authentic to that. But I did really enjoy the movie. I'll just say, Green Book has been, and Viggo and Mahershala have been in the news this week.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
They had a screening earlier this week, I believe, here in LA.
They did. I was at that screening.
Oh.
And so I have something to say about that. So go ahead.
Oh, well, so
say what you say, then I'm gonna tell you.
There was, after the screening, they did a Q&A. Viggo and Mahershala were there doing the Q&A. And apparently, in the course of answering a question, Viggo used the N-word from
answering the question.
In answering the question I think as a demonstration of, like, words that you aren't supposed to be using.
But I think they took what he said out of context. Like, he answered the question, right? So he answered the question, and then he should have just stopped talking. But what happened was,
which always happens.
Well, what happened was, he answered the question, he should have stopped talking, and then he went on to illustrate another point. And in the process of him doing that is when he used the N-word, basically saying that nowadays you don't even use the N-word anymore. But instead of him saying the N-word, he actually said the word.
Right.
So I don't think the context in which he used it was him just running around going N-word, N-word, N-word.
Right.
But at the same time, you ain't supposed to be saying it. Why are you saying it?
At all. Right. I have a couple other friends who were also at that screening, and immediately after the screening, like, I just saw things on social media, and people are like, Did y'all hear what I heard? And
I saw that too. They were like, did
Lord.
he just say that? I said, oh Lord. Like, why you gonna do that before the movie come out?
Before the movie come out, and they're talking about it for, like, Oscar potential and consideration and stuff. I was just like, But it is a great movie. It's a feel good movie. But it is unfortunate that this has kind of been in the news. Hopefully people will forget
I think it's
about
kind of fading out. So Michael B wants to know what the question was. The question basically was, do you think that today's society reflects what happened in the film very much? Is there a big difference? That's basically that, and I'm paraphrasing. That's basically what the gist of the question was, and he went on to answer that from the perspective of what it was like for people of color and for him in the film. Because let's be real, Italians back then were basically looked at as N-words too. So I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Right.
So that's what the question was, and it was just, it's unfortunate how it all went down. But this is what
He did apologize.
He did apologize. It's not like he let it happen. And,
Right.
He did apologize. But this is what happened. So the night after that happened, I'm at the AFI Film Festival, and I'm watching the gala thing of Green Book, and then I go to the reception afterwards, and I walk up to Vigo and I say that I really enjoyed the film. I feel like, he has a really good chance of getting an Oscar nomination from this because it was really good. And I said, you should be really excited and really proud. And he looked gobsmacked. I said, you don't look happy about that. And he said, I don't. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't look happy. And I neglected to remember that just 24 hours before, because I forgot about it. Just 24 hours before that is when that incident took place. So he's still probably reeling from that. And Mahershala wasn't there. I think Mahershala did the red carpet.
He did the red carpet. I saw photos.
And I think he did the screening, but he bounced between the screening and the reception. He didn't stay for the reception, I don't think, because I didn't see him. So I was like,
but Mahershala also came out with a statement, right? Saying that he
said it was hurtful.
He said it was hurtful. But he said he accepted the apology and similar to what you said, he did note that Vigo wasn't just wasn't directing the N-word at anybody, and he was just using it in the course of his example, but noted that white people, you should never use it at all, considering the history of race and slavery in this country. But hopefully, I do think it is the feel good movie of the year that everybody can get on board with. So hopefully you're right that I think people aren't really talking about it anymore. So hopefully they can continue to get attention.
I think people have washed their hands of it and they've moved on. And I hope so as well. Next up on the scad is Widows. And Widows is one of these films that got a lot of love from the Toronto Film Festival.
Yes.
And people were like, oh, Widows. And I didn't see it there, but I did see it here in LA. This is what I liked about Widows.
Uh-oh.
This is what I did like.
Oh, okay.
I thought you said, I know you thought I said didn't. This is what I did like. I liked and loved the fact that the main protagonists in this film were mostly African American people. From Viola Davis all the way down to Brian Tyree Henry to my boy Daniel Kaluuya.
So good in this.
Oh my God. Daniel Kaluuya. Ooh, them eyeballs. That's all I'm going to say, them eyeballs. But but I'll keep it short. Daniel Kaluuya in this film will make your blood run cold. And that's all I'm going to say about it. That's all you need to know before you see Widows about him. Viola Davis, for the first time in her career, she's not playing a maid. She's not playing a secondary character to somebody else.
Praise God.
She is the lead in this film. She is a romantic lead in this film. She is the Get Christy Love lead in this film. She's all that in this film. And so it warrants being seen just for those reasons alone. Cynthia Erivo, who won the Tony Award for The Color Purple, is in this film. She is slaying. She's slaying her body, her arms. She's giving you What's Love Got to Do with Her Arms.
Actually, yes.
I'm like, yes, Miss Cynthia Erivo. I mean, the whole cast is just really, really good. And it has a twist at the end that I don't know if other people will see it coming, but I didn't see that coming. I screamed out loud. But I did. I was like, no! But Widows is basically about these four women who are widowed. And we find out in the film, I can't say that much about it because if I say too much, you'll know. But these four women end up being widowed through some very special circumstances that link them all, and then they end up having to band together for another special circumstance that links them all and bonds them together, which is another reason why I like this film. It was women working together for the greater good of their own future as opposed to working against each other.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Had the chance to interview Steve McQueen, who directed it and co-wrote it with Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl. And they just talked about, updating the British television show that they were inspired by, bringing women of color into it and at the center of it, setting it in Chicago. It's probably one of my favorite films of the year.
I loved it. I did. So for time's sake, those are the majority of the films that you're going to see at the AFI Film Festival. If you are in Los Angeles and later on in the year, you will see them. And I believe Widows comes out this week on the 16th.
Yes, this coming week,
November 16th. So Widows is in theaters November 16th. So you'll get to see that whether you're at the AFI Film Festival or not. 3 other films I want to mention really briefly, and I won't go into them mostly because I haven't seen them yet, and they are up on the schedule this week at the AFI Film Fest. A Bird Box starring Sandra Bullock, Destroyer starring Nicole Kidman, and Mary Queen of Scots with Margot Robbie and Saoirse Ronan. I hear that these four women in these three films are giving the performances of their lives. So, check your local listings or check IMDb for when those films are hitting a theater near you, but they are totally worth seeing. If you are in Los Angeles, please, please, please check out the AFI Film Festival. AFI, for those of you who do not know, it is the American Film Institute Film Festival. It happens every year in the fall here in Los Angeles. It's one of my favorites. Go and check it out. So before we get up out of here, I want to talk about your streaming pick of the week.
Yes, the streaming pick of the week. It's called Been So Long. It's a new kind of musical drama on Netflix. Came out, I think, a week or so ago. It stars Michaela Cole. People might know her from Chewing Gum, which was a British television show.
Oh, yeah, I remember
yes,
that.
Yes, that Netflix picked up. And they canceled it after 2 seasons because of, creative differences. But this is the next thing that Michaela has done. And it's different than Chewing Gum, but there's that similar kind of comedy style that she has is in here, even though it's a drama. It's a musical. Now I'm gonna say it ain't, this ain't Hairspray, this ain't Dreamgirls, so don't go and expecting that. But it is really good. I really enjoyed it, and I love seeing Michaela, being a romantic lead in a film with the buzzed head.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's really great. Her daughter in the film is disabled. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. It's interesting. I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but it's interesting, and I think everybody should check it out.
Okay, cool. That is Been So Long. It is streaming right now on Netflix, you guys. So you can catch it anytime, all day long, any day of the week, any time of the week on Netflix. Next up is Slumdog Millionaire, which is our movieversary of the week.
Yes.
I loved this film for a variety of reasons, mostly because it starred Dev Patel and Frida Pinto. And I thought it was so cute that they dated for a second after that. I was like, oh, it's so cute. They're dating. Oh, it's so cute. But I love how I think here in America, we're so spoiled. We think that game shows and things are exclusive to America.
Right.
So we're always surprised when we go to another country or we see something aired about another country and see that they have game shows and reality shows too. I'm not even gonna lie. When I saw that they had bazillion different versions of America's Got Talent and American Idol all over the country, I was like, ooh, because for whatever reason, I think of those shows being exclusive to America, but the truth of the matter is most of those shows started over in the UK anyway.
Yeah, and they brought them over
here.
And
brought them over here. So I don't know why we all like that. But it was like you said, the feel good movie of that year. It was the feel good movie. It
took
really
home 8 Oscars.
It took home a lot of Oscars,
including Best Picture.
And it just opened the doors for both of those young people to act and do some really wonderful work nowadays. So I just wanted to give Slumdog Millionaire some love.
I love it.
And say what's up with them and, let them know that we love them.
We love you. We love you. 10 years, because I think it's been 10 years since the movie. Yes,
it's been 10 years since the movie came out. It's the 10-year anniversary. So it's like, wow, I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Ooh, don't remind me.
You're crazy. You are so crazy. Well, we got through everything. I can't even believe we got through because I was looking at this list going,
listen,
whoo,
we made it work. We made it work. Yes,
show the shimmy. I think Michael B in the chat room, to flip back to Green Book for a second, he said that Vigo could have slipped because he was playing a racist and maybe he hadn't shook it off. No, Michael B. I think he was trying to make a point, and I just think he forgot.
Yeah.
He just forgot that is, and it's understandable. It's not acceptable, but it's understandable how he could have slipped and why that happened. That don't make it okay.
At all.
But, there's that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Trevell Anderson, we have gone through another episode of Black Tomatoes with you. I love when you come here.
I love coming.
Do you?
You got to make sure I'm here with the entire team, though.
Okay.
Every time I've been here, he ain't been here.
I know. And he said that to me, too. He said to me, too, that he felt like I was doing it on purpose. I'm like, I'm not. I promise you I'm not. It just kind of works out that way. Next time. So next week, Scott Menzel will be back, but he'll be joined with me by another Scott named Scott Mendelson, who is also another film critic colleague of ours. So we have some really interesting things today, and I'm going to see what the two Scotts have to say about Widows after it comes out, because they weren't here. It'll be interesting to see what their take is on it, because I guarantee it's going to be completely different than what our take was.
Probably.
So I am your host, Carla Renata. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 37 of Black Tomatoes here at Black Hollywood Live. You can find me across all social media platforms at the Curvy Critic. You can find me immediately after this over at AfterBuzz TV on the GH Report or the General Hospital After Show, and on Monday nights at AfterBuzz for the Dancing with the Stars After Show. And of course, you can find all of the films that we have discussed here on Black Tomatoes at my site, The Curvy Film Critic. And where can we find you, my friend?
You can find me on the internets at Trevell Anderson on Twitter, at RAYZHON on Instagram, and Out Magazine.
Out Magazine, yay! Tre'Vell is an Out Magazine, yay!
Love it.
And of course, we want to thank all of our fans in the chat room, Michael B. and everyone else that's there. You help make BHL the hippest, dopest platform on the internet, on YouTube. Give us those 5 stars on iTunes and Spotify. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the show. Give us some love. We will give it back. And until next time, we will see you next week on episode 38 of Black Tomatoes here at Black Hollywood Live. Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.